Bench cutting is the process of excavating a trail tread out of a hillside. You can do that with equipment, heavy equipment, or hand tools. So when you're bench cutting with hand tools, obviously it's a lot more labor intense, but you gotta know how to do it, right? We have to be able to bench cut with hand tools. All right, so step one is we're gonna get all of our PPE on. Assuming we've already done a safety talk and we've already briefed our crew on the trail project, the next step after we put PPE on is to gather the tools we need and go start the project. All right, the next step is to measure your trail width. And a really cool tip that I like to use is to mark on a tool. This is a Rogue tool. We've marked it off at 30 inches. So if we go all the way to the edge of the grain right here and all the way to our tape, we have a 30th width. That's what we're going for today. So we're gonna lay it at the flag line, and we know that this is going to be our trail width. So we're gonna mark that on the ground for the duration of our pin flag. That way our crew knows to have a 30-inch width the entire way. So we've scratched in our trail tread width. That way when we are excavating, we pull from that point that we referenced down to the flag line so that the width is consistent throughout the trail. So the next step is removing the organic layer. So everything green, all the rocks, all the sticks, branches, anything that's gonna be in the way that has fallen or is still alive, we're removing it. And we're gonna set it on the outside edge of our trail because we can potentially use it later for renaturalization. If we don't use it, we just broadcast it. So removing the organic layer is the goal. So as you're removing the organic layer, there's gonna be little roots and little pieces that you can't get out. That's absolutely fine. Those pieces will come out during the excavation process when we actually dig in. So the next step, after we've removed that organic layer and placed it on our outside edge, is to excavate. And excavating sounds intimidating by hand, but luckily we don't have a really steep side slope that we're working with here today. The steeper the side slope, the more labor you're putting into this excavation, but we're working in a relatively mellow area today, so it's not gonna be as difficult. But we're gonna follow that outside edge. We're gonna take our grubbing tools and we're gonna cut directly into the ground and pull the material to the flag line, creating a bench. And that's where the term bench cut comes from.
All right, so something important to remember also is A, use the right tool for the job and let the tool work for you. Don't work for the tool. These tools are pretty heavy. They're already gonna do a lot on their own. You don't ever need to be doing any kind of overhand swinging. You might hit branches above you. You could be hitting people around you. Maintain the tool, let the weight of it come down. So that tool is working for you and you're not wearing yourself out, you're not hurting your back, and just using minimal effort, but maximizing the amount of work you can do.
It's just something that I like to do that I've done for years is after I excavate, I take a rock rake and I use the back side of the rake to rake along the trail. That helps fill in any divots and also use some of the material that we have stuck along the outside edge to get it back into the trail tread to fill those holes, and then we can determine how much more we need to excavate. Something to keep in mind when you're excavating, taking a little off the top first and then going back in and taking off more. If you get in a hurry and you take off too much on the front end, it's really hard to put it back just because compact ground is way more stable than stuff we've compacted on top of it. So just keep that in mind. So we defined our outside edge, we removed the organic layer, we cut into the mineral soil, we filled in the holes. The next step is compaction. So depending on where you are, what soil you're using, how moist the soil is in the moment, if it's rained in the last week, that will determine if you need to add additional moisture to compact.
If for some reason you're miles into the trail and you forgot your backpack sprayer, but you have a bucket, you need to get your trail wet, you can sprinkle it with your hands, make do with what you've got.
So we pack the trail to ensure that the soil doesn't erode away. It's really important to pack both the back slope and the outslope. Remember, outslope is that slight 5 degrees that we put on the trail tread so that water sheet flows off of the trail. If it's all blended together as you're compacting it, it's gonna be seamless for water flow. There are obviously a lot of differences between building with heavy equipment and building by hand, and compaction is one of the main differences. If you are compacting with a McLeod or you've got your tamper out here and you're not feeling like it's cutting it, bring your plate compactor out, bring a drum roller. Make sure that sustainability is the key. Obviously for this purpose, we wanted to show that you could build from scratch with hand tools and the process to do that. But in the compaction, you can bring out a piece of equipment if you want to get a really, really good compaction on your trail. One other thing to keep in mind is invasive species and the purpose behind hand building versus machine building. So we'll talk more about that too.
Okay, one thing about the hand tools as compared to using the heavy equipment, you can just keep it in the main part of the trail. The more disturbance of the soil is going to create a perfect environment for the invasive plants to grow, and those will encroach on the trail. You want to keep that at a minimum, and down the road that will help tremendously on less maintenance and make it much easier for you. So as you're doing it and you're working along the edge, keep in mind the less that you have to do will save you more in the long run. Even though it does take a little bit longer to do it with hand tools, you can do it much more efficiently down the road.
So the process of renaturalization can be quite taxing. The main goals are to disperse evenly. So all of the debris that we have on the outside of the edge of the trail, we want to disperse it evenly. We don't want to make piles or anything that's unsightly on the outside edge of the trail. We also don't want to create hazards. So if we've cut limbs, if we've had to bring down trees, if there are big jagged rocks, we want to place them far enough off of the trail so that someone doesn't fall on them. Also sharp edges away from the trail. And then we want to pack the outside edge, because just like your back slope sheets water, your out slope sheets water, you need that outside edge to do the same thing so that it's a seamless surface for water to cascade down the hill, over your trail, and off of it on down the hill. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to disperse, we're going to pack, and then we'll start renaturalizing. So this is our trail edge. So we want to pack and disperse all of this, and then we want to bring some vegetation up to this trail edge to define it. That's going to keep people on the tread and keep the trail from widening. It seems pointless to define the edge with things that aren't going to live, but it does give the things that will live an opportunity to grow. Okay, so that wraps up our hand build. We did a full bench cut with hand tools, and just to show you a few tips and tricks of the trade to make it easier for you to build by hand tool in the future.